Hello, my name's Ben Brain. In this video lesson I'm going to show you how you can quickly and easily replicate the infrared look. So first of all, let's create an adjustment layer by going to this icon at the bottom of the layers panel and just moving up to black and white. And you can see that we've lost all the color information in our image. We've got a new black and white adjustment layer at the top of our layers panel. And here we also have our adjustment sliders that we can use to just target specific colors in our image. So one of the characteristics of infrared film is that foliage, which radiates infrared light as it photosynthesizes, will appear lighter. So let's go to the yellows and the greens and just make them a little bit lighter by just grabbing them and moving the slider to the right a little bit. And you can see that these areas here are becoming a little bit lighter. Let's do the same with the greens. Just crank those up a little bit. Now another one of the characteristics is that the blue sky will also become a little bit darker. So let's just grab the blue slider and just bring that down, and you can see we're getting a nice richness to the sky. Let's do the same with the cyan, because there's a bit of cyan in that sky too. And we're getting a nice, lovely, rich black, which is already beginning to look like we're getting the infrared effect. Okay, the next thing I want to do is just to make the road area a little bit darker, and I'm going to use the dodge and burn tools for that. So first of all, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to fill this layer with 50% grey, click OK, and I'm going to change its blending mode to overlay. And this is a great little way of using the dodge and burn tools in a non-destructive way. So now I'm just going to select the burn tool from the tools palette and just mark over the road here, just making a little bit darker, again just to replicate that infrared look. And you can just see on the layer mask, on the layer there, that the areas where I'm doing the burning. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of a glow, because that's also characteristic of some infrared films. So I'm going to go Shift, Control, Alt and the letter E, and this has merged all the visible layers into a new layer at the top of the layer panel, which you can see there. Now let's go to Filter, Blur and Gaussian Blur, and let's just crank that up a little bit so it's to about let's do about 50, roughly 50. There we go. And let's just change that blending mode to soft light. And you can see we're just getting that diffuse glow. Now that's a little bit too much, so I'm just going to bring that down with the opacity slider to about 70%. This is all a bit subjective, so you can change it should you wish. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then the last thing I'm going to do is to just add a little bit of noise. So let's just Shift, Control, Alt and the letter E again, and of course I'm going to call this noise. Oops, here we go. And in fact I better call that blur, just so we know where we are. Let's call that burn, because that's all good practice to make sure that your layers are correctly labeled. And so let's go back to our noise. Let's go down to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and we want to make sure that we've got Gaussian blur and monochromatic, and that's way too much. So let's bring that down to, well, let's bring it down to about 2%. Maybe we could go as much as, is that going to be too much? I think that's looking okay. Again, this is pretty subjective. Let's zoom in and we can just have a little look at that. And you can see that we've got a nice bit of grain there. And again, that's just replicating that film look. If I toggle that on and off, totally, if you don't want it, don't do it. But it is one of the characteristics of infrared film. So there you have it. You can see that we have transformed our image into an infrared. So we've gone from that to that.